Okay, so working in the workflow and exploring the new Joomla workflow feature. What are workflows? So Wikipedia kindly defines a workflow as a workflow consisting of an orchestrated and repeatable pattern of activity enabled by systematic organization of resources into processes that transform materials, provide services, or process information. It can be depicted as a sequence of operations, the work of a person or group, the work of an organization of staff, or one or more simple or complex mechanisms. I mean, Simon Cowell doesn't even know what that's about. So fortunately, it does simplify down to a workflow may be considered a view or representation of real work. The flow being described may refer to a document, service, or product that is being transferred from one step to another. So what are workflows good for? Well, basically one of the best things that workflows does for you is it allows you to really define all of your processes, all of your interactions, all of your resources, and put them into a top-down overview and set of instructions and tasks and implementations that bring repeatable, improved consistency, efficiency, cost savings, time savings into your daily life, into your daily work. And how has that been implemented in Joomla? Well, first of all, if we have a quick look at the enabling the workflow in Joomla, because it's not something that has been done, it's not enabled by default. So if you want to enable workflows in Joomla, you literally have to go in and turn it on. When you turn it on, you are in effect changing the structure of Joomla and how it works. So no longer will you have a simple interface with whether you can trash or archive or publish an article. You are essentially putting your articles and content within a workflow. And there is actually a very basic workflow which is enabled when you turn the feature on, which utilizes all of the available kind of features that Joomla has with its articles, including publishing and unpublishing, archiving, so on, with when you turn it on. So one of the things it does is it changes all of the configurations with each of the different content elements. So let's start and look at categories and how the workflows interact with categories. So each category or subcategory can be connected to a specific workflow. It can be connected to the default workflow, or it can be connected to an inherited workflow from its parent. And when you think about the ability of being able to nest categories, just how powerful that feature will become, but also maybe how quickly it could complicate workflows as you start to get into it. So let's have a look at the articles. So the article configurations are also enhanced with the implementation of workflows. And this is where it starts getting a little bit complicated. For articles, you are limited in the transitions that you can implement for an article based on what stage that article is in. So it very much controls what you can do with each and every article based on the stage that it's in, and the transitions from the workflow that have been defined by your configuration. And again, one of the things that's really great about workflows is because it's been designed from the ground up to work with the existing configurations and features of Joomla, is every part of workflows is configurable, is permissible. So it's security. And so workflows, how does it all come together? How does it all work? So workflows at the top level are basically containers that can contain multiple stages and transitions, and they can enable and enforce these stages and transitions through the implementation of categories at the workflow level. Stages are limiting and naming containers for article interactions with transitions, i.e. they are start and end points for transitions, and that's pretty much all they do. And the transitions themselves, where the real power of workflow comes, is in the transition's ability to affect and change states, the ability to start and end in different stages, and the ability to activate notifications to email users through groups or users. The relationships of each of these containers and components is not quite as you would think. So for workflows, the relationship with stages is one-to-many. And the relationship for workflows to transitions is also one-to-many. For transitions to stages, the relationships are either one-to-one, one-to-two, or one-to-all. And we'll see how that kind of transpires and how that looks a little bit later on with the configurations. Categories are one-to-one or all-to-one, where they can be inherited. And for articles, stages and transitions are one-to-one. Access controls are basically creating, editing, deleting, executing transitions at the workflow level. At the stages level, there is editing and deleting and changing. And then at transitions, again, you've got creating, editing, deleting, and executing transitions. So you really have the ability to control every aspect of your workflow in terms of where it starts, what stages it can join and join, who can use it, who can see what, and who gets updated and informed when different transitions and activities are being executed. So if we look at the head top-down view of the basic workflow, which is implemented with the turning on of workflows in Joomla, you can see that we start with our basic workflow, and it comes with one basic stage, which has 7 different transitions. Each transition is set to public, so anybody can use them. And each transition is also set to email out a notification. And if you look at this workflow structure on its own, you see it's so simplistic. It's really not very useful as a workflow at all. It's obviously just there to provide the same functionality for Joomla when you turn on workflows as you had before you turned workflows on. So the GIFs that I was showing earlier, where the workflow is enabled, showed quite clearly that it's enabled here through the articles configuration in the options, and into the integrations, and down here you've got your enable workflow option, which enables or disables workflows. This then provides you with the workflow interface, which is basic. It gives you the basic workflow. It gives you your stage, which is the basic stage, as we saw with the top-down overview. And it gives you the list of transitions that you have available here. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that I've tried to make some modifications to the interface for those of you that have seen workflows before. And in the stages view, we've tried to add a couple of extra options to allow us to interact with workflows in a more functional manner. If I just take those out and show you what that looks like without. What I have found with the workflow interface is that it's very much, everything has to happen through this workflow button here on the side, which can get quite tiring. So we have tried to implement a few changes. So you can see here, if we go to articles, you've got your implementation here of the stage that an article is in, which is here. And if you drop that down, this will show you all of the basic transitions that are available with a starting point of this stage. And that's where the start and end points of stages becomes really important. You can change your transition through this interface here, or if you want, what you can do is go further in and you can actually change the workflow of the article. So you can move it from one workflow into another. One thing you can't do with transitions is jump between workflows, which will hopefully be something that maybe be looked at in the future for a future release. If we look now at workflows, you can see here there's very little to configure, but the permissions are quite important. So you've got your create, delete, edit, state, own, execute transitions. Then if you go into stages, you've got a much reduced set of permissions for the stage, which is action, delete, edit, and edit state. And then finally, for the actual transitions themselves, we have the transition option for the current stage and the target stage, so your start and end point for the process. The available actions, which is basically featuring or published, and unpublished, obviously. Your notification, if you want to send it to an email via users or groups. And finally, the permissions of the actual transition itself. So where would we start? So one of the things that does, there's been quite a lot of work being put into in the in Joomla 4 is the blog sample data, which comes with a whole workflow which has been built and designed for the production of a blog. And if we have a look at the workflow that comes with that, we can see a much bigger and more complex workflow. If I just show you what that looks like from a top-down view, if we go back to here, and I quickly flip through, let me show you. This is the new blog workflow, and you can see just how complicated and how involved a workflow can become. One of the things with this workflow is that the on hold transition seems, or state seems to be central to the whole workflow. And the reason why that actually has come about with this overview is simply because the on hold state has the start transition, or the transition start point, as all stages. So every stage in the workflow has a connection into the on hold state. And so this shows up just as being centralized to the whole flow. You can see now with this workflow, there's only one place where an email is sent out, and that's after the content review, when the item is published and featured. And when it's published again, sorry, there's another one there. So anything to do with publishing automatically triggers the email. And yeah, I think it's a really lovely workflow. If we go back to the our presentation, take that off and jump into the presentation here, you can now see in the stages we've got 9 different stages. We've got all of the stages there that were mentioned. The published is the default one. With the additional kind of changes we've made to the interface here to help us interact with these, we can see that we've got 4 actual articles which have been published and are in the published state. And if we click on those, we can jump straight to those articles and have a look at the articles directly. Another change that we did was to then add another jump out so that you can jump back to the stage, so that you can interact with your stage nice and easy. You can also see the transitions here that are associated with that specific stage. Now, these aren't installed by default, these aren't available by default, but they are available with a very simple override for the Atom template. So bearing in mind that workflows still being in its beta format is on like the second or third revision, there's an opportunity to improve it. So if I can now, the one thing that we at Joomla London user group, one of the things that we've been doing over the last year is we've been organizing, well, over the last 10 years, we've been organizing a monthly meetup. And the organization of that has actually become quite complicated now, and that it's all online, and that we've moved to an online stage where we're doing shares, we're doing meetup implementation, we're doing shares on Glip, we're doing different image sizes for all the shares and so on. So the whole thing has become quite complicated. And without further ado, one of the things I'd like to do is just quickly show you. Go back to the. So just to show you the team here, this is me, this bit of a high flyer there. This is Phil, bit of a low baller there. And this is Owen, whose influencing aspirations remain frustratingly out of reach. We have tried to implement our own workflow for our monthly Juggle meetup, and this is what it looks like. And so, yeah, so it is very quickly and very easy to see just how complicated everything can become. But what we're hoping is, with the implementation and the use of Joomla workflows, that we can really get and improve our organization quite dramatically. One of the things that is different from the other workflow is that we're not using the stages as a state definition, we're doing it more as an action. So we're trying to define our workflow within a slightly different paradigm. And that's one of the lovely things about workflow, is because it's been implemented with such a loose definition, it really will be able to accommodate very, very different ways of working and different ways of thinking in order to implement your processes. How are we doing for time?
Check. We're at 10:45 local, so we've got till 11:15 local. But I've got a couple of questions, and if you want me to save some time for those, let me save some time.
Well, there's still quite a little bit to go through, but we're getting towards the end of my presentation. But if there are any questions that you think are pertinent that could do, I know I've skipped over quite a lot, and it's I missed a few steps and a few stages so far. So if there are any questions that need answering.
Okay. Well, let's see. Two questions. First one, aside from article resources, are there workflows for users, media, and other resources in Joomla?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's articles.
All right.
But there is an intention for workflows to be expanded out across not only all the other elements of Joomla, but also third-party extensions as well.
Okay. The second question, email notification to user groups. Is this a universal feature of Joomla 4, or is it only available when using workflows?
Only available when using workflows.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of brings us on to the next point of workflows. Up to now, the Joomla user group team, in terms of its organizing and structure and the things we were trying to handle, all being done through Skype or Glip or any of these other kind of collaboration tools, always ended up being a little bit problematic. And if you take a little bit of license, it looks something like that on a monthly basis. One of the things that we're trying to do is get to a point where we can really kind of control and define the stages of our monthly meetup in a way which everybody knows exactly what they're doing. They know what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by. And so that brings us to, in my view, one of the most powerful and perhaps as yet unexplored parts of workflows. And that is that the whole architecture of the system for workflows has been developed using the Joomla plugin architecture in mind. And so all of the features that you've seen so far in the workflow functionality comes from the use of plugins within the system. Now, why that's powerful? First of all, plugins are very simple items to develop. And I know that might kind of put some people off because obviously they're not developers, and Joomla is a system that you should be able to use without knowing any development at all to be able to build sites and apps and so on. And that's true. But one of the things that is great and will be great about workflows is that the community will very quickly take this feature on board and start developing some very, very useful features and useful functionality. We, in preparation for this this event, have developed a small plugin, and if I can, I would like to try the demo now. Let me bring this back to full camera so that you can see. So we're in a stage at the Joomla User Group London event where we are in production of our social content. And what I've done is I've set up our new plugin and its new feature to be able to inform us when that transition actually goes through. So if I very quickly go in here and activate our transition. So we're going from here, we're changing our transition from the social content stage to social shares prepared. And it might take a second, let's hope. Okay. Is it working? Okay.
I am afraid I cannot talk right now. I am being controlled by a Joomla workflow. In case you are wondering, the real power behind workflows is automations. By employing a third-party plugin for workflows or by using an external automation service, together we can rule the world. And then one day, when you're gone, all this will be mine. Bwah ha 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 ha.
Okay, so bit of a silly demonstration, but basically what that's done, if I take you into the work transition, our very, very simple plugin has enabled a technology called webhooks. And so instead of, or as well as sending a notification, what our transition now is doing is sending a webhook to a remote service. In this case, it happens to be a service called Home Assistant, which basically allows you to control lots of different features and elements. Okay, so just in wrapping up, this is what our plugin's done, and the plugin will be available on GitHub, so it's already free plugin for people to implement if they want. And basically what it does is it enables a webhook tab within the transition configuration. So now what that's doing is basically calling out a URL every time that transition gets activated. That then makes a GET request to a certain URL, which is then activating another set of automations that are available remotely through the Home Assistant interface. You could connect this up to any system like automate.io or Node-RED or any such kind of automation. And this is where I think the workflow feature of Joomla is really going to come alive, when there is the ability for Joomla to reach out into the world, connect with other services, be influenced and implement and manipulated by other services, given that we now have an API in Joomla. So one of the things that I did try to do for this demo, which just wasn't possible, was to send, as part of the webhook, have the home automation system come in and make some changes in Joomla as part of the workflow, which technically now is possible, but was just beyond my skills. Okay, so just in wrapping up, this is what our plugin's done, and the plugin will be available on GitHub, so it's already free plugin for people to implement if they want. So that's where I would like to wrap up. I don't know where we are for time. I think we've probably got plenty of time for questions or chit chat, if you like, if that's what's.
Right now, we're good on time. This session's supposed to end at 11:15. Amazing stuff to show. That now we're sort of bridging the gap between Joomla and the Internet of Things. That's going to be pretty sweet to have.
Yeah.
I have a question queued up here. Let's see. Being asked, will the plugin have article placeholders and or user placeholders within additional message text?
Yeah, so the plugin already plays with title, user, state, and category. Again, one of the things that we're thinking about doing when we implement the different workflows within our categories, let me just show you our category structure. Hopefully you're all still seeing what I'm seeing. Yes, you are. If we go to the content, we go to categories, and we haven't ironed all this stuff out yet. So here's our workflow category, which contains all of the monthly juggle event transitions and stages. Underneath that, what I think we're going to do is implement another category, which is then going to be like our archive category, so that we then start to throw content out of the standard workflow category and move it down into this category here. One of the things that we were thinking about doing was sending the category ID out with the webhook to the remote service, which could then utilize that information within an API call into Joomla to pick up a list of articles that have been produced and pumped into different folders within the workflow. And that should be possible given the features of the plugin right now, given that it can actually, if we just jump back very quickly, given that it can send that information with it. Now, what happens is that will get sent as a JSON kind of array within the webhook. So you really need to start looking into your remote configurations as to how you pick that content up and then are able to transform that into actions and further information. So at the moment, it comes with title, user, state, and category. But those are things that could be expanded. Yes. I hope that answers the question.
And I hope so.
Perhaps overly.
I think so too. I don't see any other questions. I've got a comment though. Somebody said that they think workflow is going to be a big feature that draws companies and businesses to use Joomla 4. And I think that's, primarily because of the ability to control externally with a Joomla site. That's staggering.
Companies are already well embedded in workflows. If they're not, then they're perhaps individual or small businesses where they haven't really started to grapple with the improved performance or the need for improved performance with their operations. Big companies are doing this already, and they simply have to. For example, just even small things like when they're onboarding new teams or onboarding new team members, they've already got workflows well entrenched into how that process kind of gets activated from start to finish, and all the stages and steps just kind of fire off as and when they need to. So when they start to see that we can match their workflow, that we can uphold the production methodology within Joomla and give them the ability to kind of define it in very structured workflows, along with their access controls, along with a very flexible kind of container of the whole functionality of it, so they can kind of define their own workflows their way, if you like. I think this is going to be a very, very powerful feature and a very good commercial move, not commercial for Joomla as such, but for it to really kind of offer itself as a tool for the commercial sector. Yeah, agree.
I agree. There is a question connecting to the Internet of Things. What about security via remote services?
So the question is pointed at the webhook and how secure is it? Or
yes.
So the ability to access my Home Assistant from outside of the house has basically been done through a webhook relay. And I used the site Webhook Relay, which is a free service for very low-level webhook relaying. And I send, if I just show you the URL of the create containers, where were we? Share until, okay, social share prepared. So this is the URL that I'm sending my webhook to. That then gets translated inside of the thing, relayed to my home address. And basically what that is, the Home Assistant has the ability for you to define your own key, as it were. Basically, the way that the Home Assistant API works is for a webhook, you can create your own long token, if you like, as part of the identifier of the webhook itself. So you could create 20, 30, 40 characters in terms of a key that it's part of the URL that the webhook kind of makes the request to, and it will only activate on that specific URL. So in terms of security, first of all, even if somebody broke into this site, they would then need to go and break into my account on Webhook Relay to find out what it's being converted into, and then they would need to try and attack that vector at my house, which, if they've got that far, good luck to them. So in terms of webhooks, yeah, they could be very open depending on how you've got it configured, but by and large, it's a pretty stable technology, and there should be, depending on what receiver you're using and how you've got that configured, there should be security methods in place. Okay. I don't see it as a big problem. Although when my lights start flashing in the middle of the night while I'm watching a movie, then I'll know somebody's kind of got on board,
All right. Let's see. I don't have any other questions at the moment.
I have a question, and since
here we go.
I can come in. And I would love to record this, so Todd and I will jump off the stage. Could you give a quick walkthrough, Gary, of the plugin settings, because we didn't get to see that in actual Joomla. So maybe just a really quick, not a major intense walkthrough, but just something even showing where these settings are. Because you still have a good 10 minutes.
10 minutes, my goodness. Okay.
Maybe to create an event. So Neil just mentioned where an event happens and an email gets sent to several users.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
That's a simple walkthrough. I'm going to jump off the stage so this way it's full. Okay?
Okay.
Let me step off too.
Okay, I'm wondering whether it might be that in the basic work. Okay, so a published transition, because I think all the articles in the basic workflow are unpublished. So you access the transition configuration again. In the basic system, you go through workflows, and this is the interface for both workflow, for workflow stages and transitions. Everything is kind of here. If you jump directly into workflows, here it is. You click in. Publish, and here is your configuration. So let's change this to the basic stage, and because there's only one stage in here, it will have to remain at the basic stage, so it both starts and stops with the same stage. It's perfectly feasible. And if we then look at the transaction, what the state is doing in the transaction tab is publishing this item. And you can see there, the publishing state can either be unpublished, archived, or trashed. Then in the notification section, which is enabled by default for everything, so I think there's going to be quite a lot of emails flying out when that first gets turned on for people. We've then got the option to select user groups or individual users. So if I select myself as an individual user, actually what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I'm going to quickly jump to this other demo because emails didn't work in that system. So I'm going to do exactly the same. Quickly log in here. I was having real problems trying to get emails working for the demo and everything before. So, but I do know that in this system, so if I go back in here and we go to public, and then we turn that to the basic stage and we go to the notification. So here we are again. And if I pick, let's pick me. Just in case, let's put me in as a publisher. And I'll quickly go into users, manage, add in a new user. Give me an email.
Philip, did you mean to come up onto the stage? He has to come up, so I brought him up. Did you mean to come up? I don't think he did. Okay, sorry. I'm off. Keep going, Gary.
I'm going. Okay, so let's save that. I'll need to put the password in again. Okay. Don't like the way when you tab down from that password and go to the confirm password, it just stops there at the I, which is irritating. Password, oh, brilliant. Okay, there you go. The reason I'm adding in another user is I'm not 100% sure that the system will send out an email to itself if you're the user that's activating the email. So I just want to make sure. Okay, so there we are. So now let's just check, see what. I'm going to put myself in publisher, save, close, and that should be it. So now if we go to content, look at our articles, we should find plenty of articles that are unpublished, and we can see one there on the basic stage, my test article. And if I use this drop down and go to published, we can see that the notification was sent and that the new state has been saved. So that is it. Basically, you configure the transition and the effect and the notifications and everything that you want to happen for that part of your process, all in the notifications. You do very little in stages, very little in workflows once you're all set up. Your real kind of heavy lifting will be done in transitions and in articles. And that was why we put in the or I put in the extra functionality here, which just allows you to quickly jump between the articles that you're working with, and then if you want to, you can go back and you can actually jump on so list of articles all very quickly, all from the same interface, and back again if you want to. And I'm sure there's better ways of doing that. For us, it wasn't too hard to implement the overrides, and I'll make the overrides available, although they were quick and dirty, so they're not I wouldn't put them into a production release yet. But let's just check to make sure that I got an email. Hopefully we did.
I do have a question while we're waiting for the email to wend its way through the ether. Are notifications targeted to a view level? If a user is in a view level but wants to opt out of the email notification, how would that work?
That's a good question. You don't have that functionality, and that would be something that the only way you could do it is by shifting the user into a different, I mean, I would flip that question on its head, in that I would ask why you would want a user who's involved in a transaction or in a set of processes, has a defined role within that part of the workflow, why they would want to opt out of a notification.
I agree. Because what if this has been set up by their superior? They don't oftentimes in a work environment have the option of saying no to their boss.
I think the one place where this does apply is in the basic workflow that is turned on by default when you activate workflows. Every transition has email enabled. And I think in that sense, it's going to start firing out loads of emails. I think a better option is to have the notification disabled by default. And one thing we might want to look at, which I haven't actually done, is to see if that configuration is possible within the plugin itself. So one of the lovely things now, you go to plugins, you actually have a specific type for workflows. And here we are with our workflow notification. And so no, the only thing that you can do is add a whitelist for extensions, i.e. you can add your articles in as your whitelist, or you can put in a blacklist. So at the moment, there's no way to do that. But I would flip that on its head. It's like having the user want to opt out of something that they're part of in terms of a defined process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do get the point, though, in terms of, with all the emails and kind of notifications and distractions that we get, very often people want to do that. But say, for example, they're part of a group and they're not actively involved in something, I guess, in kind of doing part of that work, but they're in it to back somebody up. If they're not available or something like that, then they may not want to get the emails directly. So, yeah.
Okay.
The workflow implementation hasn't gone down into that level of detail in Joomla in its initial rollout.
All right.
But
well,
nothing to stop you expanding the plugin for notifications and adding in a list, a user list for users to be excluded. It'd be very, very simple to do in a plugin.
All right. Well, that answers that question then. I don't see anything else in the pod. Nope.
Okay, well, that kind of leaves it just to wrap up then.
Right.
I'll make the plugin. It should already be up on GitHub in my repositories, but I'll make sure that it's there. And if there's anything that you find that's a problem or that you want some support or help, I'd be happy to jump in and help you. But it's a very straightforward plugin. Also, I'll make the overrides available, but they're not 100%. Like I said, they are a little bit dirty, but they do kind of provide something of an easier ability to jump in between the different sections of workflows, I find. So that was it. So thanks everybody for staying and hanging in there.
Gary, I'm on behalf of JoomlaDay USA, I genuinely appreciate you taking time out of your weekend, coming by, showing us this, because this is pretty cool. I'm sorry, I think it's pretty cool, especially what can be done with it, especially the things that it can trigger outside of the site. That's amazing. So yeah, exactly. So I really appreciate that. I will take a moment here to once again thank our sponsors, our gold sponsor Watchful, and our other sponsors that are very numerous, too numerous to name in the time I've got, because they've made this possible. They have made this event happen. Plus the staff, Laura and her team, they've really put together an amazing event. Having been to a bunch of live Joomla days, having been to a couple of online Joomla days, I really, I'm having a good time here, and I hope all of you are having a great time and learning new things. So
thanks from me to all the team as well. It's really great privilege to be allowed to come and speak and be given the opportunity. And what an amazing job that they've done. The team has been incredible, I think.
All right. Well, we've got, let's see, the next set of sessions starts at 11:30, goes till 12:30, and then there's going to be a midday break, I believe, for lunch or for whatever you need to do before we start the afternoon sessions. So let me check one more thing, make sure everybody's cool. Good. And yeah, with respect to workflows, I'm looking forward to seeing this one feature in Joomla 4. There have been requests for it from clients, and so I'm anxious. I'm very anxious, and I want to thank Gary again for spending part of his day with us. I want to thank all of you in the room for hanging out and spending your time with us in this session. And so let's go on. Let's go forward. And let's enjoy the rest of the day. I hope all you enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see some of you